Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and the how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated mumbo-jumbo using a simple system. Your accountant's too busy documenting your transactions and creating a rear-view mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this. It's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed material, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. Also, I have a new course on effortless profit available. You can find a link in the show notes. Today, we have David Wood, who is a former consulting actuary to Fortune 100 companies. He built the world's largest coaching business, becoming number 1 on Google for life coaching and coaching thousands of hours in 12 countries around the globe. As well as helping others, David is no stranger to overcoming challenges, himself having survived a full collapse of his paraglider and a fractured spine, witnessing the death of his sister at age 7, anxiety and depression, and a national gong show. He coaches high-performance business owners to double their revenue and their time off by focusing on less. Let's meet David. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, David Wood. It's good to have you join us today.
Thanks, Rocky. Good to see you again.
And it's good to be here. So let's dive right into this. Why should we care about focus?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, I think one of the problems for business owners is that we see the options. We see all the possibilities and the strategies. Entrepreneurs are creative by nature. So we see 5 different target markets that we want to serve. We see 5 different problems we want to solve for them. We've got 5 different solutions. We've got 5 different traffic sources. You can start to see how to be easy to get very scattered in the business. And so listeners, if you can relate to any of this, feeling some overwhelm, feeling some uncertainty, do I have the right strategy? I'm trying to do too many things at once. And particularly if you have a sense that you're busy all the time, but you're not really nailing it, you're not moving towards your goals, then you might have a case of shiny object syndrome. And it's human, it's common, you're not alone. But what I want for you is that you can double your revenue in the time frame you want, which for a lot of people, most of my clients, is 12 months. Let's double our revenue, then let's double our time off. And you can only do that if you overcome shiny object syndrome and get super disciplined and focus.
And that's something that totally resonates with our audience, because I'm always talking about get double the revenue with half the work. Those are our goals. And actually, I don't focus on revenue. I focus on profit. How do we double the profit with half the efforts? Because then we can go live life and enjoy the profits. So how do we do this?
Absolutely. All right. Well, really what we need to start doing is to become aware of how scattered we are. You ever meditated, Rocky?
I do. I meditate. I try and do it every day.
Yeah.
Sometimes a couple times.
So if listeners, if you've meditated, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, Just try this for 2 minutes and you'll get what I'm talking about. You sit down, you close your eyes, you start to count your breaths. How many breaths are you going to get through before the mind comes in and starts having you thinking about the socks that you put on this morning and what you're going to do tonight, right? So that's an example. This happens during our work life. The human mind is like a monkey on crack. So the first thing we want to do is just get how scattered we are. And as you try and implement the 5 steps that we'll talk about, you'll start to see it. That's the first step. It's like, oh my goodness, I sat down, I created a goal, I set the timer. How did I get to my email inbox and now I'm responding to Bill? How did that happen? Or how is it that I'm checking a Facebook post? Or how is it that I'm tying my kids' shoes? I said I was going to do this, and look what's happening. So, all right, let's start with step 1, because there's focus at the macro level, and then there's focus at the micro level, and we need to learn both skills. So if you're going to focus at the macro level, you've got to know where you're going. And, this is not rocket science, but there are a lot of people I talk to, they don't have clear goals for 2021. They don't know what would have them do the happy dance 12 months from now. So that's step 1. Know what you could achieve in 12 months' time. 3 goals is plenty. You can have 5 if you want. You start getting to 20, you've got shiny object syndrome, right? Go ahead.
I was going to say, that sounds so simple, but most people don't have clear, definitive goals for the end of the year.
Yeah, that's right. So let's just start. You've got a blank canvas. What is it? You might want to have some business goals and some life goals. I had a client I've got an 8-week course to help people bump their revenue by 20% over 8 weeks. And I had a client say, I think I have too many goals. What do I do about this? I said, create your top list, say 3 to 5 that really matter, and then have a bonus list. You're probably not going to get to the bonus stuff, let's be honest about it. But at least we know this is my priority. If you don't do that, you're going to feel scattered, and that doesn't feel good. So that's number 1. What are my 12-month goals that would really have me do the happy dance? And then everything else, put it on another list, because we want to know what we're choosing to care about for 12 months and what we're choosing not to care about. And I know this is going to be hard for a lot of people. It's hard for me because I want to do everything. And so this is where the discipline comes in. All right, for 12 months, I choose to care about this, and this is the stuff that I hope to get to next year, but I choose not to care about. And then if you find yourself working on the stuff on the second list, that's where you got to pull yourself up and go, hey, Rocky, step away from the goal. That's not what we're doing this year. And this is going to take some discipline. So that's step 1. Step 2, I had a client ask me once, how do I make this real? Because a year from now or 3 years from now, it's kind of pie in the sky. It doesn't mean anything to me. I said, exactly. We've got to layer your goals. So we know what it looks like 12 months out. What's it look like, say, 8 weeks or 12 weeks? You choose, doesn't matter. 8 weeks from now, what are you going to have achieved to know that you're fully on track for those 12-month goals? This is where the shit gets real, because 8 weeks is coming up.
Well, and that's true. I follow a 12-week year plan, which is Brian Moran's book, and it's based on the same concepts as Profit First. It's based on Parkinson's Law. When we constrain our time and we plan out what we want to do, it's a lot easier to hit our goals.
Absolutely. So let's suppose you've done that. And by the way, listeners, we'll give you a checklist at the end of this episode. It's a cheat sheet so that you can just go through and say, oh, I've done 3 of these things. Here are the 4 that are missing. It's a really great guide. So the next step, let's suppose you got your 12-month goals. You know your 8-week goals. The question still comes up, how do I make those real? How do I tie those to my daily actions? And the answer is pretty simple. We just layer it again. I want you to know, this is step 3, what will you achieve in the next 7 days? Now, if 8 weeks was getting real, 7 days is getting very real. And I have a board up in front of me. I've got a list of what I choose to care about in the next 7 days. It's Post-it notes. And then I've got other stuff that I want to get to, but it hasn't made it into the 7-day grid. That's very important. We need to choose what to care about in the next 7 days and what not to care about. Because we want to do everything, that's okay, but this is where you exercise discipline. Now, obviously, if you just go and create that, you're like, all right, David said I need my 12-month goals, my 8-week goals, and my 7-day goals. That's great, but what happens a week from now? So what I want you to do, listeners, is pause the podcast right now and go and put in your calendar a weekly date with yourself. I call this a CEO date. Date with yourself for 20 minutes a week. That's all you need, but you do need it every week, and you're going to need a little discipline to actually show up for that, right? Because if you slip, oh, I'm busy, I don't have time, I can't make you show up for the date. I can get it in your calendar. I can have you stop the video, but I cannot have you show up. That's up to you. And during this date, here's what you do. You got 20 minutes. You look back on the last 7 days and you will celebrate. Because I promise you, you've done about 10 times more than you can remember in the week. And it's important that you pat yourself on the back for what you did. And then with the rest of your time, you will choose. You look at your 8-week goals or your 12 weeks, and you'll say, what will I bite off for this next 7 days? Now, Rocky, I'll give you a tip here. If I don't do this process, if I don't have this date with myself and create my weekly 7-day targets, I have to pay $5 to somebody. That's a consequence. That gets my attention. If I didn't do it, I just slide. I'd be like, I don't want to do it this week. I don't have time. I can't be bothered. But this is a commitment I've made, $5. It can be to someone you don't like, can be a political candidate that you don't support. This will get your attention and make sure that every single week you know your 7-day targets.
I've kind of automated this. So what I do is when something comes up this week that I know I need to do, but it's not on this week's task list, I'll go into my Google Calendar and I'll create a task for it next week when I see some time on my calendar. And then next week, when the time comes, I go in, I complete it, and I mark it as done. So when I finish the week, I can go back and look at my task list and say, did everything get checked off? Oh, there's a missing task. Let me move that forward to next week. And next week, I need to make sure that it's one of the first things that I get done because I missed it this week. And it just creates an instant review system. And if I have certain tasks that I need to do every single week, it's put on my calendar, automated, to show up at a time that I can work on it every single week, and it just repeats. And every week I go in and I click it, done.
I love this. So what I'm hearing is discipline. And that's what we're talking about here. Now, look, business owners, if your goal is entertainment, then don't listen to anything we're talking about here. And that's a valid goal, just to feel busy, have a good time, navigate by curiosity. That's a valid plan. But if you really want better results, if you want to be super productive and you want to be deliberate about where you're heading and actually get there, then you're going to need some discipline so that at least you have awareness on, hey, I am moving forward towards those goals, or hey, today I went off track. But if you don't have a system like this, you won't even know. You'll just be busy for 3 months and then wonder what the hell happened. All right, so we've covered 4 steps. We've covered your 12-month goals, your 8-week goals. We've covered your 7-day goals. And step 4 was to book the CEO date so that every single week those 7-day goals repeat. And then step 5, highly recommend that you book sprint time in your calendar. Because, look, it's one thing to just wake up and just get some stuff done and answer emails and answer phone calls and, respond to the kids and the husband or the wife. But to actually have focused time where you can do what I call a work meditation and get a deliberate goal accomplished, you're going to need some time blocked off for that. And another reason you need this is because I don't expect you to be focused 24/7. That's ridiculous. You've got to tell your brain when it's time to focus and when it's okay not to focus. So these sprint times are exactly that time to focus. So what we're going to do is I recommend 2-hour blocks. You can choose something else, but 2 hours is a good chunk of time. I can turn off the rest of the world. Facebook's off, email's off, phone is off, sign on the door, family knows, short of a fire, please don't interrupt, support me in being focused. I'll come out and I'll hug everybody. Book your sprints. It might be 9 to 11, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday from 4 to 6, Sunday from 4 to 6, whatever works for you. And then again, you're going to want to honor those dates as sacred dates with yourself and show up, because it's too easy to go, I got this other thing to do right now, or this meeting's come up or whatever. I can't make you show up for the meetings, but I can invite you to stop the recording right now and go into your calendar and book those sprints weekly. And if those times don't work for you, you'll change them, but at least get them in. And then once those sprints are in, how wonderful. You get to show up 9 to 11, you set your goals, you set your timer, and this is where you get to practice the meditation. I'm going to just only do this, and then you will go off track. I promise you. You will go off track, but that's okay. What I recommend is have a sheet of paper next to you, and when you go off track, write down what it is that you want to do, or your brain says, oh, I didn't order that thing on Amazon, and you want to just get in and do it while you remember it, just write it down on your later list. And it's like, I'll do that later, and then come back to the task at hand. It'll take some practice, but you're going to feel like a champion when you've got these sprints and you're cranking out your goals each week and you're moving towards those 8-week goals and those annual goals. You're going to feel like a champion, and that's really what I want for you.
And I do a lot of these things, and I will tell you, it works. It is proven plan. It's not complicated. You can keep this really simple, and just like all things, doing simple is hard.
Yep. And Rocky, what you said about the constraint, that's what it's about. See, if you have a boss, your boss often plays the role of giving you those constraints. You've got until Thursday to get this done. Okay, boom. But when you're the boss, you have to create those constraints for yourself. So we can take it even further, Rocky. You sat down for a 2-hour sprint. You don't want to say, all right, I'm going to work on my website for 2 hours. That's not going to work. That's not a real constraint. What I recommend you do, I'll sit down, and if I've got 2 hours, that's 4 sprints for me. And I do sprints of 25 minutes. But you need a specific target for each one of those 25 minutes. Otherwise, you might just mess around for 2 hours, and then you're like, I didn't really get anything done. So if it's working on the website, the first 25-minute sprint might be, I'm going to draft my bio, a complete draft of the bio. Not half of it, but a complete draft. The second sprint might be, I will get it up on the website and send it to 2 people for feedback. The third sprint, you get what I'm saying? We make it concrete. And then when you set the timer, hey, set timer 25 minutes, game on. You know now what you want to achieve in all 4 of those sprints. And you know if you're late on the first sprint, you're not going to get the second and third and fourth sprint done. So I feel the pressure, and it's fun for me. And then at the end of those 2 hours, if you nailed it, which is sometimes a bit of a miracle, but if you do, you can feel really good about yourself. And if you didn't, my bet is that at least you were super productive and you learned a lot during those 2 hours.
And that sounds like the Pomodoro technique, where it's like that. It is. So 25 on, 5 minutes to kind of catch your breath, breathe, relax, and
push-ups, chin-ups. You might do what a coach of mine, Russell Price, called exercise snacks, right? You got 5 minutes, you know you got a break, go and do some push-ups, grab a cup of tea, boom, back to it, and we're on. That's a fun way to work.
It is, and it works. It's proven. People do this, and it's systematic. Yep. I like systems. Yep. The more systems you can put in place, I just find that it takes all my thinking away, so I can just do. Otherwise, I sit here, and if I've got an open block of time, I'm like, what should I do next? And I'm staring at the ceiling for half an hour, and nothing got done. That's
right. And often we wake up like that, right? I believe, Rocky, we have two strong personalities inside us. We have the worker who can roll up our sleeves and get something done with direction, and we have a CEO that can make big picture decisions. But we don't want to try and access both of those personalities at once. It's confusing. So when you wake up, do you want to be accessing your CEO and have to start with planning and work out what to do and what not to do today? Or do you want to wake up in worker mode just knowing what to do? If you want to wake up in worker mode, which I recommend, then here's a great question to ask at the end of every day. We call this a bonus step. It's not in the top 5, but it's a bonus step. You set an alarm, say 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock every day, whatever the end of your day is, and ask yourself this one question. If I was only allowed to do 2 things tomorrow for my business and life, what would they be? That will focus your mind. Put those 2 things on 2 Post-it notes, and then when you wake up, I know you can't always do it because you might have a meeting, you might have things that you have to do, but as soon as you have open time to get stuff done, this is what you do. You do those 2 things. And for bonus points, do not check email, do not check voicemail before you work on these 2 things, because those things will hijack your agenda. And I want the whole point of this interview, the whole point of this is that you set the agenda and you follow your own agenda.
And I think that's important. I know for me, I have an automated calendar system, but there's a start time on it, and the start time isn't 8 a.m. It's much later in the morning, might be 10 or 11, so that nobody starts claiming my time before I have time to get my own things done. And it makes for a much less stressful morning, knowing that I don't have to rush to the first appointment. There's got to be a good reason that something gets put on my calendar early. And I also know that if something's going to get put on my calendar early, it has to be a Tuesday or Thursday. So I've even further constrained myself to say, you can't mess with Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because I'm going to the gym and I need more time, but I'm a little bit more flexible these other days. And so I'm putting more constraints into the system, right? And they're just great.
Well, I just got a hot tip from you that I had not thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense. I'm letting my assistant book appointments at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. I don't mind that, but how much more powerful to try and leave those first 2 hours early so I can actually crank out what matters. What doesn't work for a lot of people is to try and do some of those hard things in the afternoon. Once you've done your calls, you've done your emails or whatever, you actually burn willpower, and it's harder, and you might not get around to it or do it as well. So use those early hours for your agenda and then have your meetings later in the day. That's brilliant. Thank you, Rocky.
And that's pretty much what I do, because I know that the longer the day goes, the less the willpower I have. It's just the reality. You start every day, you burn out by the end of the day. And so make sure, I know for me, my best creative time is first thing in the morning. So if I'm going to do creative stuff, it's got to get done early.
Exactly.
Later on, it's going to be a struggle. So why create struggle?
Yep. When I wake up, I can tackle anything. I know that I can tackle anything. I can sit there. I can at least talk myself into 25 minutes of anything. If it's taxes, if it's creating slides for a presentation that I've been resisting doing, whatever, I'm like, it's hard for me to wake up and decide I'm going to do something difficult. But if I've made that decision the day before, then it's easy. I just know. I'm psyching myself up, and my brain might even be working on it while I'm asleep. I'll wake up and I just know. I get my cup of tea and my water, I take the dog out to pee, or she takes me out to pee. We haven't worked out who's taken whom. And then I come back and I'm like, all right, this is what we do first. That's the discipline. That's the practice.
And I try to do the thing that I dread the most first.
Yes.
Because otherwise it's just sitting on your head all day long. And now you're like in this mood and this funk. But if you just, and I've also found that when you just do it first, it wasn't something that, it took a fraction of the time you thought it was going to take. It
Often,
usually gets
yes.
done quickly. It's like, why was I fussing over this for so long?
Right.
Like,
Well,
just get it done and move on.
Well, counterpoint, sometimes I do those things and I go, I know exactly why I was deferring this, because that was a bitch to do. But you're right. And it frees up some energy. And what I'll often do, if there's something I'm looking forward to, I don't do it first. Not everybody agrees with that. Some people like to start with something they enjoy. No, I want to save that. I want that to be my reward. That when I do this thing that's hard, maybe I got to call 10 prospects or, whatever it is, I got to have a tough conversation. Once that's done, I get to go and work on programming or, do a podcast interview or nerd out on something else.
And that's smart because you're at least looking forward to it. So you'll get everything else done knowing that, hey, this is my reward. Let's crank this out. Let's finish and let's move on and get it done. You've shared quite a bit of value on how to get our stuff done, how to increase our revenues, and how to be a lot more focused. If people want to get that list, where is it that you said they could find it?
Yeah, I've got a gift basket of goodies for listeners. So there's a cheat sheet with a checklist on what we've talked about and more. There are about 4 steps that we didn't cover today. There's also a little video on how to implement it. And I'm going to give you access to some of the highlights of the Samurai program, which is double revenue and double your time off. And I boiled that all down into a 35-minute video. And I'm happy to give you listeners free access. So you can get all of those at myfocusgift.com. I created that because it's so easy to remember. myfocusgift.com. Take you straight to my website. And if you think you might be a fit for the program, the Samurai program, or you want to find out if you are, there are instructions there on how we can set up a call and we'll find out. And I'll tell you straight up, if you're not a fit, I'll tell you super politely and point you in the right direction. And if you are a fit, we're going to have a good time.
Sounds like a plan, and I will put that in the show notes to make it easy for everyone to find you. Thank you so much for joining us today, David.
Thanks, Rocky. Good to see you again.
I always enjoy chatting with David. He was on my other podcast to talk about having tough conversations. I'll put a link to that episode in the show notes. All of David's links are in the show notes as well. And if he can help you, reach out to him. Remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Remember to focus on the bottom line. If you want a done-for-you service, you can have me as your chief profitability advisor because you have your zone of genius and want to spend the time doing what you love. I only work with a handful of clients so they get my full attention. I work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $5 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on my calendar for a good fit call to see if I can support you. If you want to learn about living the life of your dreams, check out my other podcast, Richer Soul. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Let's thrive and grow. Have a profitable week.